Hello and welcome to our channel. Today, we will be discussing the South China Sea dispute, one of the most significant and contentious issues in international relations today. The dispute involves competing territorial claims over the South China Sea, a vital waterway for global trade and commerce that stretches over 1.3 million square miles. In this video, we will provide a comprehensive look at both sides of the debate to help you understand the complexities of the issue. Part 1. China's position on the South China Sea dispute. China's claims to the South China Sea are based on historical and legal grounds. China argues that it has had a historical presence in the region for over 2,000 years, and that this gives it the right to claim sovereignty over the area. They point to historical maps and documents, such as the Nine-Dash Line, which outlines their territorial claims. China also argues that it has a legal basis for its claims. They claim that the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea UNCLOS, which governs the rights and responsibilities of countries in their use of the world's oceans, allows them to claim sovereignty over the South China Sea. UNCLOS recognizes a country's exclusive economic zone EEZ that extends 200 nautical miles from its coast, giving it control over the natural resources within that zone. China argues that its territorial claims overlap with its EEZ and that it has the right to claim sovereignty over these areas. They claim that their presence in the South China Sea is primarily for peaceful purposes, such as scientific research, weather monitoring, and fishing. They also argue that their military buildup in the region is defensive and necessary to protect their territorial integrity and sovereignty. Part 2. The opposing view on China's claims. The other countries involved in the South China Sea dispute, including the Philippines, Vietnam, and Taiwan, reject China's claims. They argue that China's claims violate international law, specifically UNCLOS, and that they are not supported by historical evidence. The other countries argue that China's claims overlap with their EEZ, violating their sovereignty and economic rights. They point to evidence that other countries, such as Vietnam and the Philippines, have had a historical presence in the South China Sea, and that they have a right to claim sovereignty over certain areas. The other countries also argue that China's military buildup in the region is a threat to regional stability and security. They claim that China's aggressive behavior in the South China Sea violates the principles of peaceful coexistence and international law. They argue that China's territorial claims are excessive and that they threaten the freedom of navigation in the region, which is essential to global trade and commerce. Part 3. The impact of the South China Sea dispute. The South China Sea dispute has significant implications for regional and global security and stability. The dispute has already led to tensions and conflicts between the countries involved, including the Philippines and China, which engaged in a standoff over the Scarborough Shoal in 2012. The dispute also has economic implications, as the South China Sea is a vital waterway for global trade and commerce. The South China Sea is home to some of the busiest shipping lanes in the world, and any disruption in these lanes could have a significant impact on global trade. The dispute also has strategic implications as it involves major powers such as China and the United States. The United States has been involved in the South China Sea dispute since the early 2000s, and it has taken a strong stance against China's territorial claims. The United States argues that the South China Sea is an international waterway and that it should be governed by international law, specifically UNCLOS. Part 4. Freedom of navigation in the South China Sea. One of the critical issues in the South China Sea dispute is the principle of freedom of navigation. Freedom of navigation is the right of ships and aircraft to travel through international waters and airspace without interference from coastal states. The principle is enshrined in UNCLOS, which recognizes the right of all states to navigate through international waters, including the South China Sea. However, China's territorial claims in the South China Sea threaten freedom of navigation in the region. China claims that foreign military vessels and aircraft must seek permission before entering its claimed waters. The other countries involved in the dispute reject China's claims and argue that they have the right to navigate freely through the South China Sea. The United States has taken a strong stance in support of freedom of navigation in the South China Sea. The U.S. conducts freedom of navigation operations (FONOPs) in the region, in which it sends warships and aircraft through contested waters to challenge China's territorial claims. The U.S. argues that these operations are necessary to maintain freedom of navigation in the region and to prevent China from establishing its own rules for international shipping and aviation. Part 5. Possible solutions to the South China Sea dispute. The South China Sea dispute is a complex issue that has no easy solution. However, there are several possible ways to resolve the conflict. One possible solution is to seek a diplomatic resolution through negotiations and dialogue. The countries involved in the dispute could engage in talks to find a mutually acceptable solution that respects the principles of international law and the rights of all parties involved. Another possible solution is to seek a legal resolution through international courts or arbitration. The Philippines took this approach in 2013 when it filed a case against China in the Permanent Court of Arbitration (PCA) in The Hague. In 2016, the PCA ruled in favor of the Philippines, declaring that China's territorial claims in the South China Sea were illegal. However, China rejected the ruling and has continued to assert its claims. A third possible solution is to strengthen regional institutions and cooperation. ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, has been working to establish a code of conduct in the South China Sea, which would provide guidelines for the behavior of countries in the region. However, progress has been slow, and China has not agreed to participate in the negotiations. In conclusion, the South China Sea dispute is a complex issue that involves competing territorial claims, historical and legal arguments, and strategic and economic considerations. While China's claims to the South China Sea are based on historical and legal grounds, other countries involved in the dispute reject these claims and argue that they violate international law and threaten regional stability and security. The dispute also has implications for freedom of navigation and global trade and commerce. Possible solutions to the conflict include diplomacy, legal resolution, and regional cooperation. It is essential for all parties involved to work towards a peaceful and mutually acceptable solution to the dispute to maintain regional stability and security. Thank you for watching, and we hope you found this video informative.